You've been conditioned your entire life to be kind, forgiving, and patient. And nobody told you the truth. Nobody warned you that out there, in boardrooms, in relationships, in families, there are people who saw that kindness and quietly marked you as a target. What if the very qualities that make you a good person are the exact qualities being used against you right now? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never be played the same way again. Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever done everything right in a relationship, given everything, showed up, stayed loyal, and still ended up feeling used? Confused? Like somehow you were the problem? Have you ever helped someone only for them to disappear the moment you needed help back? Have you ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong, but you couldn't explain it? So you stayed quiet because you thought maybe you were being paranoid? You weren't paranoid. You weren't weak. You weren't too sensitive. You were just playing by a set of rules you didn't know existed, while someone else played by a completely different rule book. Here's what nobody teaches you growing up. There are two games being played in every social interaction. The one you think is happening, built on fairness, reciprocity, goodwill, and the one that's actually happening, where some people are quietly calculating every move. Good people finish last, not because they're weak. They finish last because they don't know the rules of the game being played against them. Psychologists, behavioral researchers, and negotiation experts have studied these manipulation systems for decades. The tactics we're about to break down aren't theory. They show up in cults, in toxic relationships, in corporate politics, in advertising, and politics itself. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Let's go. Rule 1. The law of induced debt. The most dangerous favor is the one you never asked for. Psychologist Robert Cialdini spent years studying the science of influence, and what he found was striking. Reciprocity is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. When someone gives us something, we are hardwired to feel we owe them something back. It is biological. It is ancient. And manipulators weaponize it with precision. Here's how it works in the real world. Someone at work starts doing you small, unsolicited favors, bringing you coffee, covering for you in a meeting, offering help you didn't ask for. It feels generous. It feels kind. But slowly, quietly, a ledger is being built, and you don't even know you're on it. Then one day they ask for something that maybe crosses a line, and you feel obligated because of all they've done for you. That is not generosity. That is a calculated investment. The tell. Unsolicited favors that arrive with a subtle emotional weight. A look, a reminder of what they've done. True generosity expects nothing. Induced debt always comes to collect. How to counter it. When someone gives you something you didn't ask for, you are under no psychological or moral obligation to reciprocate beyond a genuine thank you. Practice saying, "That's kind of you, but you really didn't have to." It signals clearly the ledger is closed before it opens. Rule 2. Strategic isolation. Manipulators don't attack your judgment directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they quietly remove the people who support your judgment. This is one of the most documented tactics in cult psychology and abusive relationships alike. It rarely looks like control. It looks like love. It sounds like, "I just feel like your friends don't really understand you the way I do. Your family is always so negative. Don't they bring you down? I just want you all to myself." Is that so wrong? Little by little, the people who would look you in the eye and say something seems off are gone. And once they're gone, the only reality you have access to is the one your manipulator is feeding you. Research into coercive control, particularly the work of Dr. Evan Stark, consistently shows that isolation is not a side effect of manipulation. It is the foundation. because a person with a strong support network is nearly impossible to fully control. The sign to watch for: anyone who consistently frames your outside relationships as threats to your connection with them is not protecting the relationship. They are dismantling your defenses. Rule 3. Variable reinforcement, the slot machine effect. This one is perhaps the most psychologically devastating rule on this list, and it's the reason people stay in situations they know are destroying them. B.F. Skinner, one of the most influential behavioral psychologists in history, discovered something extraordinary in his research on reward systems. The most addictive reward pattern is not consistent reward. It is random reward. When you don't know if you're going to get the good version or the bad version of someone. When praise and punishment come unpredictably, your brain doesn't detach. It becomes obsessed, trying to figure out the pattern, trying to earn the reward. This is the psychology behind slot machines, and it is the exact psychology used by emotionally manipulative people, whether they know it consciously or not. One day they're warm, loving, and affirming. The next they're cold, distant, and critical, and you spend enormous emotional energy trying to get back to the good days, walking on eggshells, monitoring their mood, adjusting yourself constantly. You are not weak for responding this way. You are human. Your brain is doing exactly what brains do under variable reinforcement. It is chasing the reward. Breaking the cycle requires recognizing the pattern as a pattern. Write it down if you have to. When you can see the cycle clearly, warmth, withdrawal, it loses some of its power over you. Rule 4. Identity erosion. Manipulation that targets your actions is one thing. Manipulation that targets your identity is another level entirely. Identity erosion is subtle. It begins with small jokes at your expense, then mild criticisms dressed up as just being honest with you, then comparisons to other people who somehow always seem to do things better than you do. You're so sensitive. You always overreact. I'm the only one who puts up with you. Over time, a picture is painted, and you start to believe it, that you are too much, that you are difficult, that you are lucky someone is willing to deal with you at all. This is not accidental. When a person loses confidence in their own perception of themselves, they become dependent on the manipulator to define who they are. And whoever controls your self-image controls your behavior. The antidote: keep a record of who you were before a relationship or dynamic began to change you. Talk to people who knew you before. Their perception of you is data. Treat it seriously. Rule 5. Manufactured crisis. Stable, calm environments give people time to think, and thinking is dangerous for a manipulator. So some manipulators keep the environment in a constant state of low-level emergency. There is always a problem, always a conflict, always something urgent that requires your attention, your energy, your emotional resources. When you are perpetually in crisis mode, you cannot zoom out. You cannot reflect. You cannot ask the bigger question: is this situation actually healthy for me? This pattern is particularly common in high-control relationships, certain workplace cultures, and even some family dynamics. The chaos is not a malfunction, it is the mechanism. Ask yourself, when was the last time things felt genuinely calm in this dynamic? If you struggle to remember, that answer tells you something important. Rule 6. Reframing reality. Gaslighting. By now, most people have heard the word gaslighting, but understanding it intellectually and recognizing it in real time are two entirely different things. The term comes from the 1944 film Gaslight, in which a man manipulates his wife into questioning her own sanity. And the technique is simple in structure, but devastating in execution. Deny, distort, minimize. That never happened. You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. Everyone agrees with me, not you. What makes gaslighting so effective is that it targets the one thing you rely on to navigate reality, your own perception. Once that's compromised, you become entirely dependent on the other person to tell you what is real. Neuroscience research has shown that sustained gaslighting can actually alter how the brain processes self-trust. Victims often describe feeling mentally foggy, a state sometimes called cognitive dissonance overload. The most important counter: document. Write down what happened immediately after it happens. Dates, words, events. Your written record becomes an anchor to reality that cannot be verbally dismantled. Rule 7. Strategic unpredictability. The final rule is the one most people never see coming because it looks like personality, not strategy. Predictable people are easy to negotiate with, easy to set boundaries with, easy to hold accountable, because you know what to expect. But someone who is deliberately unpredictable, who shifts moods, changes rules, makes promises, and breaks them without pattern, is extraordinarily difficult to hold to any standard, because by the time you try to address a problem, the landscape has already shifted. Some people use this unconsciously. Others use it with calculated precision. Either way, the effect is the same. The people around them are permanently off balance, permanently accommodating, permanently trying to keep the peace rather than advocating for themselves. Power in this game belongs to whoever is least predictable. Now here is what you actually do with all of this. First, learn to audit favors. Before you accept a favor, ask yourself one question. Does this feel like it comes with an expectation? You don't have to refuse kindness, but you should notice the weight attached to it. And if someone references what they've done for you to justify a request, that is your signal. You are being called to pay a debt you never agreed to carry. Second, protect your network like it is a strategic asset. Because it is. Your friends, your family, your mentors, people who knew you before a particular dynamic entered your life. These are your reality checks. If a relationship consistently asks you to move away from those people, treat that as an alarm, not a compliment. Third, when facing a manipulator, calm is your weapon. Unpredictability works because it creates emotional reactions that can be used against you. The counter is radical steadiness. You don't have to be cold, but when you stop reacting with high emotion, you stop being an easy target. Manipulators feed on activation. Stillness starves them. Fourth, assert boundaries in a way that doesn't invite a power struggle. This is where a lot of people make the mistake. They assert a boundary as an accusation. You always do this. That creates defensiveness and escalation. Instead, assert the boundary as an observation about yourself. I'm not comfortable with this. Not you. Me. It's harder to argue with a personal statement than an accusation. This is called a first-person boundary, and it is significantly more difficult for a manipulative person to dismantle. Fifth, trust the pattern, not the moment. Manipulators are often extraordinary in their best moments. That's part of the design. But behavior, over time, tells you everything. Stop evaluating the relationship based on its highlights. Look at the full arc. The pattern is the truth. Here is the shift I want to leave you with. Learning about dark psychology is not about becoming cynical. It is not about trusting no one. It is not about seeing every kind gesture as a trap. It is about something far more valuable. It is about knowing the rules of the game so that you can choose consciously and freely how you want to play it. The most dangerous person to a manipulator is not an aggressive person. It is not a paranoid person. It is a self-aware person. Someone who knows their own value. Someone who doesn't need external validation to feel secure. Someone who can walk away. Your kindness is not a weakness. Your empathy is not a flaw. These are extraordinary human qualities, but they deserve to be protected. And now you have the tools to protect them. You came into this video as someone who may have felt confused, used, or gaslit. You are leaving it with a framework that took researchers, psychologists, and behavioral scientists decades to build. Use it. If this opened something up for you, if any of those 7 rules made something in your past suddenly make sense, I want you to go watch this next video, because we go even deeper into how these systems operate, and more importantly, how people like you and me break free from them for good. I'll see you there.